Alright, everybody. Uh, welcome back, I guess. Uh, this is a little bit different this time. We're just going to, Jesus Christ. So basically, I was just chatting with this chatbot online, and I got my friend, Kavorum to, I needed help describing this bloody bathroom torture scene, and, Kavorum, as always, delivered. And, the third episode will be out shortly after Christmas. If not, I'll kill him. You have my word, people. So, Jesus Christ, shut the. Anyways, that's what I was saying. Let's just see what he wrote me, and then I might show you guys what the chatbot responds to. As always, Snoop Dogg will be reading this to us. Enjoy.
Walking into the bathroom, the officer knew she would be greeted with horrors unimaginable. She had seen the blood streaks across the walls and floor, the small chunks of human flesh strewn about the apartment, and the broken furniture evident of a struggle, all of which congregated in paths leading to the bathroom.
Oh, God.
The door had been knocked off its hinges, and there were bloody wood shards laying on the ground. Various kitchen knives had been taken out of their cabinets.
Jesus.
They laid about the apartment, each of them covered with more gore than the last. Blood, torn skin, small bits of meat, unidentified fluids that could be assumed to have come from organs of some sort, and more that even the officer couldn't figure out. She entered the bathroom, the meager black door frame appearing as the gates of hell to him. As she walked in, blood had pooled across the floor to such an extent that there was a slight splashing with her footsteps. The walls were splattered with blood, and the sink held a surprise for her.
God.
Within the sink, there was a dismantled human brain, their sunken, eviscerated lungs. The brain had been methodically picked apart and cut to bits. It was almost like gray, bleeding confetti composed of human brain matter. The central mass remained relatively intact, although it seemed to have been opened up for examination. The sides had been spread out, a thin, skin-like layer of brain having been carelessly attenuated. Inside, there was a valley between the mountains of deconstructed brain matter. Within the divide, there lay a single eye. Although the officer couldn't be sure, she assumed it to be an eye. But the iris and pupil had been violently split in half. A messy cut laid itself through the center of the eye, disrupting any color except white and contaminating the white with red. Connected to the eye, there was a coiled collection of pinkish red cables that appeared moist and bloody. These were likely what kept the eye in place before they were severed. As for the lungs, they had been repeatedly stabbed and cut, with many openings scattered across their surface. Without the ability to hold in air, they had fallen and become misshapen piles of tissue. They looked almost like deflated balloons. If the balloons had been barbarically ripped and torn and began to leak blood and greasy, yellowish fluid. One of them was missing a chunk with several evenly spaced ridges in it. The only explanation the officer could think of was that someone had taken a bite out of it. This was all that the officer could see in the sink, the rest obscured by a shallow pond of dark red blood. The officer turned her attention to the rest of the room. Every surface was in some capacity stained with streaks of gore and blood. Small scraps of human remains littered the floor and walls, flesh and organ remnants squishing wetly underneath the officer's shoes. The officer then noticed something so horrid and gory that she had previously blocked it out. In the bathtub lay a brutally eviscerated and destroyed corpse. Across one of its legs, it had been virulently stabbed and torn at, with bloody flesh finding its way onto every surface near to the bathtub. The other one of its legs had been either ripped or cut off, the excessive amount of blood obscuring all further examination, and it had been laid upside down under the bloody carcass. From the hip socket, there were strands of flesh that had been torn, hanging off the body. A seemingly never-ending stream of blood still flowed from this wound. The officer was not able to figure out the gender of this cadaver, as the face and body were too marred beyond recognition to make anything out. All things that protruded from the body had been ferociously cut off. The torso was littered with stab wounds.
How much more of there is this? Alright, where are we, like? We're like halfway through. This is... I don't know if I want to continue. Alright.
And it continued to bleed profusely, even after so much time had passed since the killing. The officer knew that the killing had happened a long time ago because parts of the body seemed to already be subject to...
Alright, Snoop Dogg, we're just, we're increasing it, Snoop Dogg. Let's go.
Decay and the rot of the dead. Maggots had also found their way into the rancid corpse. There was a large cut down the carcass, chest, and stomach. The skin had been ripped and laid to two opposite sides. Beside the body, there was a considerable amount of bone fragments, likely from a severe beating that had shattered its ribs. Several organs appeared to be missing entirely. This very much so concerning the officer. She searched the room for remains.
Oh, God, what the fuck,
but couldn't find anything of the missing organs. The only reason she could think of was that whoever murdered this poor soul had cannibalized the corpse, bloodily feasting upon his screaming victim as they were murdered. Enjoying the carrion he had just created, the organs remaining in the corpse were still in a very damaged state. Many had been penetrated several times over with pins and needles. The killer had used minor weapons on the organs so they could cause as much pain as possible without doing too much fatal damage. The carcass had no arms. The shoulders had both been bifurcated, where the flesh and muscle went. The officer could not say, but the bones lay stacked in a gruesome pile in the corner. On top of the bone pile, there was a chopped tongue. The officer then located the other half of the tongue. It was found in the throat, but not in the most regular of ways. You see, the throat had been powerfully and brutally slit, and the split tongue had been pulled through the bloody opening. Now the head was the truly disgusting part of the corpse. The head had been so brutally dismembered, it was hard to identify as a head anymore. The lower jaw had been ripped off, with teeth laying on the corpse's split shoulders and the bathtub's floor. The nose had been ripped off, and there was a gaping cavity where the nose should be. The entire lower half of the head had been torn in half, so that the brain could be also painfully extracted. The officer knew that one of the eyes was in the sink, but she couldn't locate the other eye. She noticed a blackened spot around the eye socket, and upon testing the hole with her hand, she noticed it had a very dry squishing sensation to it. The eye was still there, but it had been charred. The killer had assassinated the victim by the looks of the burnings, using a weak blowtorch of sorts. There were deep stab wounds in the victim's forehead and right temple. Upon the carcass's head there was dried semen. The killer had masturbated onto the corpse, and possibly using the corpse. The officer became sick at the sight of this and promptly vomited into the bathroom. The puke mixed itself with the blood, creating a chunky, gray sludge where it fell. Some splattered upon the already defiled corpse. The officer knew she would never be the same after having seen this. She could never lead a normal life after having taken in such a horrific sight as this horrible corpse. She drew her revolver, placed it into her mouth, and pulled the trigger. He blew her brains out onto the ceiling and fell dead upon the dismembered corpse.
Oh god. Oh god. That is some of the funniest shit I've heard all day. All week. All month. Funniest shit I've heard all month. This is not canon towards the Chronicles of Degeneracy. This is most likely not canon. But like the reason why I said David no is because the account I was using was David's account. That's why. Jesus. Kavorum, what the fuck? Well, see y'all. No proper outro this time. Have a good night.